and welcome to what is supposed to be my first YouTube video and sort of a blog type thing that I feel like I want to do. Basically, I've been spending a lot of time watching YouTube, following people on Instagram and the likes, and realised that potentially, not that I'm one of the few people that lives like I do, but there's not many people I've found to follow on YouTube that do life how I do it. Basically, I work full-time, I live alone in a rented property, and I keep sheep, chickens, and have a kitchen garden, and do a lot of cooking from scratch, like curing meats, making bread, that sort of thing. And I just wanted to show people how it can be done without having a whole family as your army to help you, you know, shell your beans when you want to preserve them, or you know, having either money from somewhere or a second person with the income, because a lot of things I get with people, you know, oh, I don't know how you've got the time, and I'll just show you how I have the time. So I'm not really sure, I haven't put much thought into the structure of what I'm going to show you, but I thought I'd start off with just what I've done today. So I started the day at, I started working the day at 6 AM and I did a 6 till 9 shift. I think I should just introduce two people that, well, dogs, that will feature and already have featured. That noise you can hear is Bex, my Collie Kelpie cross, who is just chewing down there. And the other noise that you will occasionally hear is Ginny Dog, who is just there. And then potentially the other noise you can hear in the background, there's a bit of a whirring noise. That's my dehydrator, which I'll get to in a bit. So I did a 3-hour shift working in a local garage. Then after that, Ginny Ann, you don't need to start either. Come here. I do like that the dogs bark when they hear a vehicle, so I don't try and discourage it, but it will interrupt things, especially as it's harvest season at the minute, so there's tractors and trailers going up and down the road, and they particularly like a big heavy trailer to bark at. Sorry, sidetrack. So I worked till 9, then I've got a friend who's got some sheep in a field that's not far from where I was working, so to save her driving over and checking on those, I just popped across, checked those. All 4 feet on the floor for all of them. They're all looking happy, which is good for sheep. Then I came home, straight in the house, let the dogs out, got changed into some... Jin, no. Trees piece of cardboard. Oh, it's a piece of cardboard for you. Good girl. So get changed into some clothes that can get mucky, and I then whizzed down to the chickens, gave them a bit of feed. I only give the chickens feed little and often because I don't want to encourage rats at the minute. Live out in the middle of nowhere, there's fields of barley, there are always rats around. I collected any eggs, did a little harvest of some French beans, picked some spring onions that I need for later, check the squash patch for any surprise courgettes, because no matter how many times you look, you always find one that you've missed. Today I was alright, I just got one normal size courgette. What else did I pick? I picked a few calendula flowers, and then was back in the house, emptied my dehydrator, that's how I get into, which had some, so I'm using my dehydrator a lot more this year because I don't want to clog up freezer space when I don't need to. So I have put in the dehydrator yesterday some grated yellow courgette, because you can grate it, then dehydrate it, and then all you've got to do is soak it, and you can use it in cakes. Or, I mean, you can grate it and freeze it as well, but like I said, unnecessary freezer space. So I've got jars in my cupboard of grated courgette. The reason I'm grating the yellow ones, hang on one moment. There we go, easier to explain by showing you. Jim, it's me. So I dehydrated slices as well, and you can see. When I first dehydrated them, I dehydrated yellow and green, and then I did a rehydration test where I just boiled some up to see how they rehydrated. I found the yellow ones were very soft in the middle, and I was like, I don't fancy that in my pastas in the winter. So I picked out all the yellow ones and put them in my compost, and I have now just got a jar full of green ones. So any times I have an excess of green courgettes, which I'm trying to pick small, because see, the bigger they are, the more water they've got, and the longer they'll take to dehydrate, and then potentially the soggier and mushier they're going to be when I eat them. So yep, I have a jar full, which also has in it one of these handy, they're food grade silicone packs, but they're rechargeable, and actually this one needs recharging soon. I don't know if you can see, there's beads in it. When they're bright orange, which on the camera they look quite bright orange, but they are just turning, it's good to go. When they go a dark green, you just pop it in the microwave or on top of a radiator, and it dries out again, and then you can pop it back in your dry goods and it'll absorb any moisture from the air or from the goods themselves. So yeah, so that's my dried green courgettes. And then this, you can see that, is shredded yellow courgette, which I put in these, you might recognise these square jars. But I like the square jars because they stack really well in the cupboard, fit quite a few of them in. So I've got 3 of these so far. About 1 hydrator full is 1 jar full for me. So yeah, and also you can use it for things like soup and stews or whatever you're cooking. Just throw a handful of it in and it will rehydrate as it cooks. So that was what was in 3/4 of my dehydrator this morning that I emptied, and the rest of it was some dill, which wasn't from my garden. I bought some dill on my last supermarket order so that I could make some pickles. They didn't have any dill plants, so I had to buy a couple of bunches. So 1 bunch I've dehydrated, so I've got a jar with only, I mean, it dehydrates down to nothing, but about that much in the bottom of a jar of dill if I need it at a later date, and I've got another bunch for the pickles that I'm going to make after lunch. So then I had the dehydrator empty, cleaned the trays, and yesterday I'd marinated some beef. One of my other jobs is I work at a butcher's. So on Monday when I was at the butcher's, I got a piece of beef. There's somebody at the door, I will just check. Ginny, it's just the neighbour. So my cottage is semi-detached in that it's basically 2 farmhouses joined together. Well, it was a farmhouse and a barn. There were 2 brothers. I've got the original farmhouse, which is tiny. It's not like you think of a big farmhouse. And the other brother turned the barn into another house. And there's my neighbours that live in that one, which is the bigger house. And this morning his front door latch crumbled or something like that, and he's trying to fix it so that he can leave the home secure. So if there's any banging and then dog barking, that's what that is. So yes, work at a butcher's. I make beef jerky. I know there's lots of debate about the best cuts and all that. I just find a piece of stewing steak that's not got too much fat running through it, because fat doesn't dehydrate very well, is excellent. And I whack it in. We've got a big walk-in freezer. Whack it in the freezer for like 20 minutes so it goes nice and firm, and then stick it through the bacon slicer on full mill, and then I bring it home, marinate it, do whatever I want to it, and then stick it in the dehydrator. So I put it on the maximum temperature that mine goes to. Shush. And I leave it in there for maybe 6-8 hours, something like that. Basically, I go in and I test it, and when you bend it and you can see like little white bits, it's good to go. And then either, dependent on whether I think I'm going to just snack on it fairly quickly, like within a few weeks, it'll go in a jar, or I have been backpacking some into sort of like 50-gram packets, and then dating them and putting them in the cupboard for later on in the year. Although this batch does smell very good, so I think it might get eaten quite quickly. The last batch was quite a plain batch. I didn't put too much spice on it, but this one's got quite a lot of Cajun spice. Yeah, so I loaded the dehydrator. Then I went and checked my sheep, which currently are in the orchards just behind my house. So it's an easy check. And then I decided to move. In the yard, I've got what's left of a pile of wood chip, or had. And I've got a shed with muck in that's about 2 years old. I didn't use that shed last year, I used the other shed. So I've been using that muck in the garden over winter, and I will be using it again. The only thing is, because it's in the shed, it's about that thick, but it's in layers. Sorry, you're wobbling because of that down there. It's in the shed. It hasn't really rotted down properly. It's still sort of, it's in layers and stuff. So I have made a clamp out of some pallets, and half of it's wood chip, half of it is muck, and I've just been slowly moving muck and wood chip across when I've been walking to and from the yard. I decided to just move a load of it. I think I've got a couple of wheelbarrows of wood chip left over there, and it just got too hot outside, so I decided to come in. I did create a little video of that, so I will sort of show you what I'm doing, but basically I work on bribery. I don't like moving the muck. It's hard. It's set in the shed quite a lot. It takes a bit of work digging it out. So for every barrow of muck I moved, I let myself move a barrow of wood chip. And every couple of barrows I watered it with grey water, which is from my washing up and, well, not really my shower, but if I'm having a long shower, there will be a bucket in the bottom of it, but I've got a butt that I put aside just for the grey water because it doesn't keep as well, and I don't want it on everything. I use all natural washing up liquids and shampoos, so I don't need to worry about that going on the garden. So yeah, so watered every couple of layers, and then on top of the final layers I put some cardboard and an old potato bag, just because it's so warm outside that it will evaporate off. I will probably remove the cardboard overnight because the birds like scratching around in it, and it helps turn things and stuff, and it helps the birdies. Yeah, so I'm inside. I should say also, I know where I'm sitting probably looks a bit weird. This is one of the dog beds, and it's the easiest place where both dogs can see me because Jin is only in the living room and the garden, and Bex has the run of the rest of the house, so hence the gate. But Bex does go in the living room, but Jin just doesn't come this way. Just because she's a little puppy that gets everywhere, and Bex isn't the biggest fan of her going in her crate and things like that, so just to avoid arguments. Yeah, so I'm going to have some lunch, and then we'll see what else I get up to. I've got work later again today. I'm milking at 4:30. I'm struggling to find stuff to go in my compost heap at the minute because we've had no rain, so nothing has grown. Well, no, there's no grass or that sort of stuff. But I did spy that in the barn where there was hay 5 years ago or something, not my hay, it was somebody else had the barn at the time, there's a load of like hay and straw chaffy stuff. It's not the best stuff, but it'll rot down in the compost heap. So I might sweep that up because that's sheltered and in the shed, and I don't do well in the heat. There's a possibility I will sit down and do some knitting. That's good activity for the heat. What have you just found? Is it a new toy for me? Good girl. Yes, I mean, there'll be mundane jobs like, I say like cleaning. Actually, I need to put up some sheep fencing in the second orchard, because so the orchards are rented to me for the grass, they're rented to somebody else for the apples, which means my sheep have got to get out of there before the apples start falling on the ground, otherwise the sheep eat the apples. So to make their life easier, I try and graze it hard before the apples fall, so they haven't got to pick, they hand pick them, they haven't got to pick them through too much grass, which means strip grazing, which means I need to run electric fence down a strip of the first orchard so that I can push my sheep through into that. So I might do that later. Bex, and this way, thank you. Or I might do that this weekend, we will see. Yeah. All right then, well, I will catch up with you later. And if you've watched this far, thank you, because there's lots of rambling, and I never tell a story in a straight line. There's always a lot of like tangents on the curly whirly path back to the original point, which I'm sure you've worked out already. But yes, I will catch you later.